When I found the right fit, which was my wife eventually through that process, I knew I couldn't live without her.
Right. So the beauty of, let's just use your example as case study,
Mm-hmm.
and your loneliness, though, and what we're trying to encourage the audience, you still continue with your quest.
Mm-hmm.
You was lonely, but you were looking for the very thing that satisfied the loneliness, which was your specific person.
Yep.
And so you kept looking until you found her.
And I just happened to luck out and things happen. I think if you know what you're supposed to do deep down inside, I think everybody does. And a lot of people just don't go after it, like most people start out, they say, I want to be a this, but I'm going to get that to make sure I have something to fall back on. Yeah. And what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're going, there's a possibility that I'm going to fall back. And when you put that out there, then you fall back. But if you just say, hey, this is what I want to do, and you go do it, you usually get your stuff the way you want it, man. That's what
It is always personal in Philadelphia. I am talking to the amazing Dr. Parham. Dr. Parham is a trained psychologist. Listeners already know Dr. Parham always provides amazing tools for healing. Dr. Parham is going to be leading this conversation. So, Dr. Parham, take over.
Yeah, thanks again for having me again, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, a very meaningful experience when we come together. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And so over the holidays, one of the things that I've been ruminating over is an epidemic that we often don't talk about, which is loneliness. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to unpack that, because that's been really on my wheelhouse to talk around loneliness. And so, when I think about my training and schooling and all the years of trying to, become a better practitioner, loneliness has never been studied. And I know that even for myself, loneliness is something that I've experienced. Even thinking about, my upbringing, when we talk about elementary school, and some of the most scariest moments would be lunchtime. Mm-hmm. And you would go to lunch, and in my mind, I'd be thinking about what table will I be able to sit at that would actually accept me. Mm-hmm. And so you go through this whole, you'll rehearse sort of what would happen, what the children would say, who would kick me out. And so you feel lonely. When you have that loneliness energy or mindset, or when it takes over you, you oftentimes seclude yourself. Mm-hmm. Because you already know that it's going to be some form of rejection. So what I'd like to talk to the audience today about is loneliness.
Loneliness is a subjective feeling of being disconnected, unseen, or lacking meaningful connection with others, even when you're surrounded by people. It's not about how many people are in your life, but about the quality of those connections and how fulfilled you feel by them.
Dr. Tracy Marks, a licensed psychologist and mental health expert specializing in anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and personal development. She is well known for her educational YouTube channel, where she simplifies complex mental health topics.
The epidemic of loneliness and how social media has played a major part in facilitating this huge, massive rock called loneliness.
Mm-hmm. Loneliness is like hunger. Just as hunger signals that your body needs food, loneliness signals that your mind and heart need connection.
And so one of the things that we have forgotten to talk about is how the way systems are built, the way things are constructed today, everything is built for us to be contactless, emotionless, ways for us to be disconnected. It's a problematic. How do you feel about that? Because you being in the shop, interacting with people, one of the charms of coming into your shop and getting our haircuts is the idea that we can't interact with our phone and actually be in Paul's seat. Mm-hmm. We can go to another barber and actually scan our phone while they cut our hair. But coming into your seat, there's a discussion. We're talking about real life, deep issues, and you can't interact with your phone and be in Paul's seat. There's something about your presence that pushes one to have real dialogue. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel the barbershop is essentially a safe space. So in that safe space that I've cultivated, I'm around a lot of people who are typically present. It's rare that I have people in my chair who aren't present.
Yeah.
So I can notice it when somebody isn't present because they're constantly on their phone when they're in my chair. But I do feel lonely when folks come into my safe space who aren't present.
Who aren't present, see? And so I'm glad that you brought that up as we differentiate loneliness from seclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that introverts and extroverts both, we all need a form of seclusion to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel that introverts need more seclusion to recharge so that they can go out to the world and interface. I mean, there's lots of public figures who you would deem them as extroverts who are really introverts. And for a living, they have to interface and be the extrovert personality, but you may find that on their alone time, they're secluded.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difference from being lonely.
Right.
And so when I think about loneliness, it's a lot different from what we think about seclusion. So what you mentioned that there's a few people that I meet. I just want to take you guys, audience, down a journey that over the holidays, you know, the holidays could be a dicey time. Christmas time, one, especially if you're single or single parent, or one who is basically relocated to a different city, you're taking a pilgrimage alone. And around the holidays, there's assumptions that we all have. You know, people around their families, there's kids, lots of friends, and then that's adding the beast, the social media tool. And as you begin to open up the window of social media, you begin to explore and see different pages of all the brunches and the friends' Friendsgivings, and everybody so-called is, you know, in this picture with their family. Then you begin to look at that, the imagery of that, and you begin to use it as a rubric for your own life. And you start to say, well, I don't have that. I don't have friends. There's nobody calling to check on me. I don't have any dinners that I'm being invited to. And so you're sort of being forced into this seclusive sort of atmosphere. But that seclusion is lonely because you don't want to be secluded. You want to be with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one example of how loneliness can appear. Another example is what you mentioned around being around lots of people, sometimes in the shop or just in, you know, at dinner. And all said people at the table don't share the same ideologies of you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't share the same mindset. They're calibrated or vibrating at different scales. And so you could feel lonely in those spaces too, even though there's lots of people around you.
Right.
And so that's what you kind of mentioned when you just gave that beautiful definition that sometimes if you're in the shop with people who are not calibrated the same, you can feel lonely.
Right.
You might have many acquaintances or social media friends, but very few deep, authentic relationships. Quality trumps quantity when it comes to combating loneliness. Speaking of social media, our digital age plays a huge role in modern loneliness. We're more connected than ever online, but these connections often lack depth.
I can be lonely, but it's not a depressive state. I'll be in observation mode, and I generally like to be active in conversation.
Yeah.
So if I go in observation mode now, I'm trying to figure out why you're not present.
Yeah. And so when I think about that, you could be alone but not lonely.
Mm-hmm.
But you could be with several people and be lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so the loneliness is not about quantity. It's not about the amount of people who are around you, the amount of activities that are happening, or even if the environment seems robust. The loneliness is what's happening within you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Often, when we feel lonely, our minds can spiral into negative self-talk. Thoughts like, I'm not good enough, no one understands me, or I'll always feel this way. These thoughts reinforce our sense of disconnection and make it even harder to reach out.
On a mental level, it can be lonely at the top if you don't have a safe space of people on the same algorithm as you.
That's right.
It can be very lonely.
That's right. Because oftentimes, most of us show up with masks on, right?
Yeah.
And you and I are not taking those masks off unless we feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I have to wear the mask longer, that can be lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Because my true self is actually hidden behind the mask. And I personally have to interact with that person alone, while my representative, my masked person, is actually showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there are some people who they have no opportunity to take off the mask unless they're actually going to sleep.
Mm.
They go to work with a mask on.
Mm.
They have social gatherings with a mask on. They go home to spouses where they have to wear a mask. They wear masks in front of their children.
Mm.
And they go to sleep. That does exist.
Wow.
And so when you think about that construct, that is, can you imagine if we just all embody that type of profile, what that person could be going through? You're by yourself literally all the time.
It's important to note that sometimes persistent feelings of loneliness can be a symptom of depression or other mental health conditions. If you suspect that this might be the case, you should seek professional help.
And so this epidemic is why we're calling it an epidemic, is because it's a silent killer. It is actually, most of us are experiencing it, and we don't really have venues or pathways to actually express ourselves so that we can get out of it. So later on, I'd like to kind of unpack some movements as we talk about sort of the problem, but some solutions of those people out there who are getting involved and trying to handle this epidemic of loneliness and creating safe spaces and movements where people are creating safe zones where you cannot use your phone, where there's a place where we all connect, where there's a curriculum or a prompting to help people have better and stronger conversations. And it's happening and emerging all over the United States. Smaller grassroots, but it's taking fire, and I'd like to be a part of bringing a highlight or giving voice to those movements, or basically saying, we feel lonely and we want to be a part of the solution.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I have a number of safe spaces that I attend. The Muay Thai gym that I go to is a safe space for me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I recorded the last episode with a gentleman from the Muay Thai gym, and we're both very honest with ourselves, and we notice that we gravitate towards people who are also honest with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that the Muay Thai gym is a safe space in itself, I find that if you understand what a safe space looks like, you're going to naturally be gravitating towards safe spaces wherever you go.
Yeah.
Or people who are also safe. They're in your algorithm.
That's the truth.
One of the best approaches is to, one, try to sit with yourself to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Try to be honest with yourself. Now, being honest with yourself is not trying to compete with other people, but recognizing where you are, similar to a GPS, so you can figure out how you can get where you want to be.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to sit in all your deficiencies.
Yeah.
Right?
And that takes courage.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of us use busyness and Instagram and all of those things to cope with our loneliness.
Yep.
And so what you're beckoning the audience to do takes a lot of courage. Because that's no noise, there's no distractions, you're just you and your thoughts. And for some, that could be pretty scary.
And I will tell you, this came from my good friend Clayton. Shout out to my homie Clayton. He said to me, as it relates to my fitness journey, you know the truth. You can post whatever you want to post about your workouts, but you know what you did. And that's why you said it's a scary thing, because you know the truth about yourself. Do you have the courage to lean into that truth? And I think if people listening sat into their fears and leaned into them, they would have breakthrough moments.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I think that. And so I think that's what these solitude beds are trying to create.
Yeah.
Safe spaces where people can actually put the mask down. You're not required to be anything, to do anything, but just to exist in your own being. And there's no pressure.
Yeah.
And so to do that, it's like it takes, again, courage, but sometimes you got to set an atmosphere. Sometimes you got to create spaces where people can be ignited.
Right.
To have that done in their private space. But, you know, these kind of engines that are trying to promote togetherness, community, safe space, solitude, internal evaluation and reflection pads. Those are places where, you know, we can curate those, but sometimes people need like a little bolster to kind of get them started, and then they can kind of put that into their practice every day.
Okay. Here goes an example of me leaning into one of my fears. Again, I've been on a journey for the last 8 months doing Muay Thai, which is martial arts, and it's been, the life lessons in this martial art have been incredible. And at the end of the year, around December, I typically take my foot off the gas, put off from all type of rigid workouts and exercising and diets, and just self-reflect and enjoy my accomplishments. So before hitting the new year, I reached out to my coach and I told him, I felt safe enough to tell him, this year, I want to spar a lot more and lean into my fear of fighting. I had the space to do that. And mind you, I go to Muay Thai training all the time. I spar twice.
Yeah.
His reply back was, I love it. He said, I love it. Imagine that. Imagine a grown man, 195 pounds, 15% body fat, who is good at Muay Thai, telling you that, you know what, I'm going to lean into my fear of fighting even though I'm doing Muay Thai. And I felt so good. Felt so good to be able to lean into that and set a challenge for just, it's incredible.
Yeah. How could we invite more people into the doing part? Doing and being.
Let yourself be vulnerable. It can be hard to admit that you feel lonely, especially if you're surrounded by friends or family. But sharing these emotions with someone you trust can be incredibly freeing.
You have to really be honest with yourself. I challenged myself with Muay Thai, right? I challenged myself to do something that I had no idea what to expect walking to a Muay Thai gym. And after 8 months of doing it, I finally was going to spar. And I was going to spar on election night. So I leave the barbershop and I close the barbershop door and I lock it. My mind is already at the Muay Thai gym. It's not on the walk to the Muay Thai gym. It's the anxiety of going there, heart's fluttering, thinking about what could possibly go wrong, what could happen. And I actually get there, and the class size, which is normally 40, is only 20 people now. So it was a really serious class. And I'm actually training, and right away I'm realizing I don't have any more anxiety anymore because I'm actually sparring. I'm in the process. I can't think about anything but what's in front of me.
Yeah.
After it was all over and done with, I was overwhelmed with all what I was made of. One, I knew after that moment I have a lot of courage. It was a moment of self-discovery. I could be mindful under high stress. And that whole entire night, actually for 3 hours, even walking back home after the Muay Thai gym, I recognized I was more focused on my accomplishment than even election night and the power of it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's more or less just jumping into the water.
Yeah.
Just jump in. If it's something that you want to do ever since you were a child, or something that you're afraid of, if it could be that female that you're afraid of talking to that you see all the time, let's jump in. The worst thing she can say is no. At least you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's also worth considering stepping outside of your comfort zone just a little. Sometimes our routines keep us stuck in the same social circles where we already feel disconnected. Trying something new can be intimidating, but it's also an opportunity to meet new people and create fresh connections that might be missing from your current social life.
And so let me go back for a second. One of the things you said that was interesting is that just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in case of loneliness, they're honest with themselves. They know that they're lonely. The part that needs the courage is being honest with others, because it comes shame of saying, I'm by myself. It's not that I don't know that I'm lonely. It's the fact that I'm having a hard time letting other people know that I'm lonely. And from that, I'm having a hard time finding spaces that would connect with other people who feel the same way.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Well, I would say to that, it was the truth of me in a place where, like, dude, yes, I spar. I know that I'm pretty good at this, or I'm getting better at this, but I'm still afraid of fighting. To have to admit that to someone and feel safe enough to do it, to express it to another person, was liberating.
Yeah.
So I can't share another story that relates to that. That's the most recent one that I can tell you. I think once you're able to sit in that truth and then express it to someone different in a safe space, man, it just reshifts your focus to what you need to be doing.
Yeah. I'm also hearing that one of the ways that you've overcome or you built sort of your social capital is by getting out there and engaging. You picked up a sport. You picked up something that you enjoy doing. And so for those of you who are listening to us, when we think about what are ways to terminate loneliness, is putting yourself out there a little bit more. Getting out there just to test out the waters to see, it could just be a social group. It could be sparring. It could be picking up a gym buddy. It could be going to being a part of a book club. But coming out of isolation with intentionality and saying, all right, I don't have my tribe. I don't know who I should be with, but let me just give some certain activities a try. And you never know. It might be a match within those circles that you engage in.
This isn't going to be an instantaneous process. It's about gradually building relationships that feel authentic and fulfilling. Take the pressure off yourself to click with people right away, and instead focus on just showing up and being open and allowing these relationships to grow naturally over time.
I remember before meeting my wife, I just got out of a 4-year relationship that it led me to do some real deep self-discovery. Like, first of all, what about me right now was with the woman who I was with, because we weren't vibrating on the same level at all, right? So at that time, I really had to dig deep and figure out what I liked, what I didn't like. I had to go on a fitness journey to figure out, like, to actually look different, to change how I looked. I looked in the mirror one day. I was like, geez, I don't look fit. I don't feel like I'm around people who are bringing out the best in me. And I think that led to a lot of solitude. I was by myself for a long period of time. I would work out by myself. I would walk home by myself.
Were you ever lonely during those times?
During those times, was I lonely? Yeah, I was lonely, but I was still on the quest to find the right mate. Okay. So even when I was with these women, when I was single, and they weren't the right fit, that made me feel lonely.
Okay.
When I found the right fit, which was my wife eventually through that process, I knew I couldn't live without her.
Right, so the beauty of, let's just use your example as case study. And your loneliness, though, and what we're trying to encourage the audience, you still continue with your quest. You was lonely, but you were looking for the very thing that satisfied the loneliness, which was your specific person.
Yep.
And so you kept looking until you found her.
Another useful exercise is to imagine your ideal connection. What does it look like? How do you feel when you're with this person? This can help you pinpoint what you really care about in your relationships. Is it someone who checks in on you regularly, or someone who makes you feel valued and accepted without judgment? These reflections can guide you toward understanding the gaps you need to fill.
I think this episode, I just want to encourage, is those kind of feel like there's a different audience that I want to speak to that often are not spoken to, which is the ones who are actually imprisoned to their loneliness. They're stuck. And I want to use this episode to use this as a gentle nudge to encourage persons to move forward, to get out of there. It's 2025. It's a new year. The holidays have passed, which I know was a very difficult time for you. But I want to encourage those people to find the courage to get out there on your quest, to move out of this lonely state so that you can live and be your best self.
I think journaling will help as well, because it's one thing if we tell you to go out and do certain things, but it's another thing to create habits.
Yeah.
You can create a habit of journaling, because it's not going to happen overnight for you to all of a sudden jump into the water regardless of how cold it is. you may want to stick your toe in
that's
and
fine.
journal. See how far you went. Keep on doing something that you know is true about yourself, so you can really lean into who you are.
Yeah.
Looking for people who will give you feedback on that can be helpful, or you journaling to find your own feedback can be helpful, but you need that along that process as well. That's what I was using when I was on my many journeys.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself. Sometimes we don't even realize what we're missing until we see it on paper.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me, as we conclude, of recently I had a good friend of mine who, she lives in New York City, and all of her college girlfriends, they stuck together, and it's 7 of them, and they travel together, they go on vacation together, they've done girl trips together, but 7 of the girls married, and now they have kids, and they're all going through their different phases of life. But this one particular, she makes number 8. My apologies for the numbering here, but she makes number 8, and she says, I'm starting to feel lonely because they're all journeying together. They all were married around the same time. They all have kids all around the same time. They're all going through physical changes that are similar post their pregnancies. They all have been married around the same time. And here she is in New York City in a apartment by herself with a big career with a dog. And it's lonely because she's starting to feel like, I don't even really feel a part of that group anymore. And these are the only women that I know. And so around Christmas time, she dreads it because this is the 5th year where she spent Christmas on her couch with a good movie, with a glass of champagne by herself. And so if it's not work, she's taking care of her dog. And if it's not her dog, she's back home. And that's just a cycle. And so I guess the loneliness that's epidemic, that's just one manifestation of it, but it looks in different ways. And what I'm trying to push out or pronounce in this episode is for members, you're a great example of what it looks like when you get out there, how the world begins to work for you, how things begin to emerge. But this is to give a gentle nudge again to those who feel stuck to get out there. And loneliness is not going to move by itself. You got to get moving. You got to get involved. You have to throw some things on the wall and try some things that you've never done before so that you can get a different result.
Try setting boundaries on your screen time and prioritize in-person meetups when possible.
So that should be a 2025 goal, but there is literally a loneliness epidemic that scientists and many researchers are now getting onto because there's several people suffering from loneliness at this time. If it's not social media, it's social anxiety. If it's not social anxiety, it's the inability to connect because we have so many layers that are in the way of us actually connecting soul to soul. We look at pictures and we think we know somebody by their social media feed. We have, if it's TikTok, if it's not TikTok, there's all these different barriers and platforms that keeps you out of connecting, but just gives you data about people that are really not accurate touch points.
Right.
You can look at my social media, even now, you still don't know me. You don't know who I am. You know what I do. You know what I practice as a mental practitioner, but you don't know me. And it's time for us to get beyond what we do, what we look like on social media, and get back to connecting with one another. And so we'll be talking about this throughout the year 2025, but I wanted to bring this to the table for us to mull on this at some point a little bit further.
Yeah, I think one tool I can tell them too before we close out is just everything requires deep listening. When someone's in front of you, don't grab for your phone to show them some activities that you're doing. Just listen to the person in front of you. And listening is hard. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to listen to somebody and try to interrupt your own thoughts and wanting to interrupt them. But just listen to them, listen to yourself. And I think that's going to, once you start to really, truly listen to yourself, you can probably start to figure out ways to challenge yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's it, Dr. Parham.
Yes, this is, once again, has been a fantastic experience. And once again, I look forward to being on the show again.
The point is, every graduate here today has the training and the talent to succeed. But do you have the guts to fail? Here's my second point about failure. If you don't fail, you're not even trying.